The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
So I just heard that they broke into the office of one of my personal attorneys, good man, and it's a disgraceful situation. It's a total witch hunt. I've been saying it for a long time. I've wanted to keep it down. We've given, I believe, over 1 million pages worth of documents to the special counsel. They continue to just go forward, and here we are talking about Syria. We're talking about a lot of serious things with the greatest fighting force ever. And I have this witch hunt constantly going on for over 12 months now.
That was President Trump reacting to the news that he got on yesterday morning that the FBI raided the Rockefeller Center office of his personal attorney, Michael-Cohen, the same Michael-Cohen who paid Stormy Daniels, the porn star, $130,000 of his personal money to keep her quiet just before the election of 2016. According to the New York Times, the FBI raided the Rockefeller Center office and Park Avenue hotel room of President Trump's longtime personal lawyer, Michael-Cohen, on Monday morning, seizing business records, emails, and documents related to several topics, including a payment to a pornographic film actress. Mr. Trump, again, according to the New York Times, in an extraordinarily angry response, lashed out hours later that what a person briefed on the matter said was an investigation into possible bank fraud by Mr. Cohen. And you heard a portion of President Trump's response. The response itself really does show a man who is coming apart at the seams, a man who's already oafish and disheveled and unhinged with his presentation. You could slowly hear him unraveling worse and worse and worse in this diatribe that he gave just before he met with his top advisors on Syria. And if you watched the video, you saw John Bolton, a man who never found a war that he didn't want to get involved with, sitting just to his left, to the president's left. But listen as the president slowly but surely attacks everyone on his team that's involved. Because the irony of this is, as much as he's placing this squarely at the feet of Mueller and calling it a witch hunt, according to the Huffington Post, this was actually signed off by an appointee of Donald Trump. That, the U.S. attorney behind the raid, this is the headline from the Huffington Post, the U.S. attorney behind the Michael-Cohen raid is a Trump appointee. Reading directly from the Huffington Post, quote, while the Cohen raid came as a referral from Mueller's team, it was not officially a part of his investigation. It was executed by the office of the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. And the man running that office, interim U.S. attorney Jeffrey Berman, is a Trump appointee whom the president personally met with. Now, there are these huge overarching questions as we look at the president becoming unhinged and unraveled. How much of this can actually go back to the president? Now, this is closer to him than I think probably anything else that we've seen so far, particularly because it seems as though this is pertaining specifically to the payment to Stormy Daniels. But how much of this is actually going to land at the feet of the president himself? Well, the president is giving us some indication of what that's actually going to be because he is unraveling before our eyes. When he gets, you could tell by his body language, when he gets his arms crossed, he gets really defensive, he gets really petulant. You can tell that this is getting close to home. He's not. And also one other thing that he does with his communications, he begins to speak directly in language that appeals to his base, and he's looking for his base to come and save him. His language of this is an attack on America. And then later on, you're going to hear him call that this is an attack by Democrats. And then he has to correct himself because he realizes that it's not just Democrats. It's actually Republicans, and not only Republicans, but Republicans that he appointed. I mean, A little bit more from the Huffington Post before we listen to the next clip. Mueller is required to consult with his boss, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, if he comes across information worth investigating that does not officially fit with his mandate of looking into Russia's role in the 2016 election. Rosenstein then can refer the matter to the U.S. Attorney's Office. So, for this to actually have even happened, it had to be signed off by Rod Rosenstein. And ultimately, the attorney who oversaw the raid ended up being somebody appointed by Donald Trump, who met with Donald Trump personally. And I think this is why you hear the president unraveling like you do here.
And it's a disgrace. It's frankly a real disgrace. It's an attack on our country in a true sense. It's an attack on what we all stand for. So when I saw this and when I heard it like you did. I said that is really now in a whole new level of unfairness. This is the most biased group of people. These people have the biggest conflicts of interest I've ever seen. Democrats, all, or just about all, either Democrats or a couple of Republicans that worked for President Obama.
And there he goes, trying to make this seem as though this is something that's being perpetrated on the American people, on the good, God-fearing American people by holdovers from the Obama administration. But he fails to inform his audience and his fan base and his constituency that this was actually being carried out by his own appointee that he met with personally. But he goes one step further. The one thing you can always count on people, conservatives doing, the only thing that conservatives can rally behind more than anything else, they will rally around the flag. Yes, they'll rally around the cross. Yes, but they will rally around their hate for Hillary Clinton more than anything else. And the president knows that. And this is what he said to try to get that rallying to begin.
They're not looking at the other side. They're not looking at the Hillary Clinton horrible things that she did and all of the crimes that were committed. They're not looking at all of the things that happened that everybody is very angry about, I can tell you, from the Republican side, and I think even the independent side.
Let me tell you, the president only knows how to do one thing, and that is campaign. He doesn't know how to govern. He doesn't know how to stay out of trouble. He doesn't know how to keep his own nose clean. The only thing he knows how to do is pander to electoral politics. Right? Campaign year politics. But even in the middle of attempting to do that, you can hear in his voice, he's starting to sound like a child who's in trouble saying, you didn't say anything about Bob. Bob did it too. You didn't say anything about Susie. Susie did something too. This is exactly what he sounds like. I mean, is this your king? Republicans, conservatives, evangelicals, is this your king? The man who whines like a petulant child, and the biggest thing about this, can everybody pause for a minute and appreciate the gravity, or not even the gravity, it's the irony of this. The irony of this is all of this has come down on Donald Trump because of his own actions. Yes, this is an extension of the Mueller probe into Russian collusion. And yes, it appears as though they're moving away from collusion and moving more into the realm of some type of bank fraud or some type of embezzlement or some type of financial crimes. It appears that this is what they're actually going to get the president for. But all of this came as a result of him firing James Comey. Had he not fired James Comey, there would not have been the need for a special counsel. Everything that the president is going through right now is a direct result of his own actions. And that, my friends, is the sweetest irony of it all. But never mind that. He's tripling down on his attacks on James Comey and the firing, rather, of James Comey.
The person who's in charge of the investigation, you know all about that, Deputy Rosenstein, Rod Rosenstein, he wrote the letter very critical of Comey. One of the things I said, I fired Comey. Well, I turned out to do the right thing, because you look at all of the things that he's done and the lies, and you look at what's gone on at the FBI with the insurance policy and all of the things that happened. Turned out I did the right thing.
I mean, the president is turning on everybody and doubling down on his stupid, right? So he's going to, in this next clip, attack Rod Rosenstein directly. And then he attacks his attorney general, the man that he picked, his pick for attorney general, Jeff Sessions. Now, he's said this before, but he didn't say it as directly as he's saying it now, that he would not have picked Jeff Sessions if Jeff Sessions said that mind you, Jeff Sessions is the Keebler Klansman. So this is not lifting Jeff Sessions up, but this is just to show you how much chaos is going on in the Trump administration as he's trying to find someone to stop this Mueller probe.
So Rod Rosenstein, who's in charge of this, signed a FISA warrant, and he also signed a letter that was essentially saying to fire James Comey. And he was right about that. He was absolutely right. So we'll see what happens. I think it's disgraceful, and so does a lot of other people. This is a pure and simple witch hunt. The Attorney General made a terrible mistake when he did this and when he recused himself, or he should have certainly let us know if he was going to recuse himself, and we would have put a different Attorney General in. So he made what I consider to be a very terrible mistake for the country. But you'll figure that out.
How fitting for a man as repulsive as Jeff Sessions to have his tenure as Attorney General stained not only by his own personal bigotry and idiocy, but by the president who appointed him. There is no more fitting legacy for a person like the Keebler Klansman, Jeff Sessions, than to forever be remembered as the attorney general that disappointed his Republican president because he did recuse himself. This is all too perfect. This is all too perfect because, ultimately, even if you take this to the logical conclusion or the most extreme conclusion and you end with the impeachment of Trump for some type of financial crimes, because that's what they're leaning towards, ultimately it's still bad for America. I mean, Mike Pence is going to be the president, and Mike Pence is going to bring a calming demeanor to his draconian and Christian Sharia styled belief system to America. But, these are the times in which we live. These are the cards that we've been dealt, or these are the cards that were dealt to us in terms of the election. So it's not as though the impeachment of Donald Trump is a fix to everything, even if it's a guarantee. But you can tell by the sound of the president's voice as he begins to unravel that this is getting closer to home than he is comfortable with, and he cannot even hold it in anymore. And he's attacking everyone around him, even the people that he picked to serve his administration. So this next story hits close to home, not only because I'm black, but because I manage quite a few Facebook pages. CNN did a story, an investigation that piggybacked off of a freelance journalist, investigative journalist Jerry Massler's investigation back in December of 2017. They together discovered or informed the world that one of the largest Black Lives Matter pages on Facebook was actually run by a middle-aged white Australian man, and that in a sense it was a complete scam where they raised almost $100,000, and that's not to mention how much money they generated off of ad revenue pushing people to their websites. This hits close to home because there's so many pages out there. There are so many pages out there who spread messages that resonate with us and with you for whatever topic. It's not just Black Lives Matter, but think of all the pages that are by anonymous people. This is why I honestly I'm always skeptical of people who will not put their name or their face with their work. If you can't put your name and your face with your work, then something tells me you have something to hide. Maybe you just have to hide it professionally. But in this case, he hid it because he knew that, one, he wasn't black, and he's capitalizing off the pain of black people, capitalizing off the Black Lives Matter movement, and he's doing it for personal profit. All right, so a couple of details. Here's from the CNN piece. For at least a year, quote, for at least a year, the biggest page on Facebook purporting to be part of the Black Lives Matter movement was a scam with ties to a middle-aged white man in Australia. A review of the page and associated accounts and websites conducted by CNN shows the page, simply titled Black Lives Matter, had almost 700,000 followers on Facebook, more than twice as many as the official Black Lives Matter page. So they're funding campaign donor sites connected to the site. There were external websites with ads on it that he would push people to, and that's a huge source of revenue. There's no telling, how much this guy made, right? With 700,000 followers and that type of activity, to have twice as many as the official Black Lives Matter page. That means he had a lot of traffic. He had a lot of activity, a lot of interactions. And that means he was driving a lot more than $100,000 of donations. He was driving more than that in ad revenue. And I think someone should investigate that a little bit further. But he since shut down the page as soon as CNN reached out to him. Facebook actually made some moves to shut down the page also. But here's the irony. Facebook only reacted after everyone else involved had reacted. The site that he set up to donate money, they shut that down weeks before. The union that the guy was a part of in Australia suspended him weeks before Facebook did anything. So everyone involved in this, even either directly or indirectly or tacitly, they made moves to put an end to this guy's scam before Facebook did anything. And in fact, Facebook knew before anyone else. Patrisse Cullors, who is one of the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, told CNN, according to the article, quote, that Black Lives Matter had, suspecting the page was a scam, contacted Facebook about removing it a few months ago. And Facebook did nothing. Nothing. So, this really, because think about it. Think about it like this. This is what Facebook sees. Facebook sees a group that is actively doing things. The more people do on Facebook, the more money they make, the longer people stay on the site. So they have these really loose rules about what type of page you can create. And what about what type of activism or whatever? They have very loose rules. They're not going to have anything there that says that, oh, this is a white guy who's not even involved in American politics. He's not really connected whatsoever to the Black Lives Matter movement. They don't care about any of that. He set up the page and he managed the page just like every other anonymously run page on Facebook. So there has been for some time a tremendous amount of opportunity for people to scam genuine movements out of their money in order for their personal profitable gain. The original investigator thought that this page was tied to the Russians, but apparently this Russian was in Australia. Clearly he wasn't Russian, he was Australian. But this just goes to show you, man, I think it's time for people to put their name and their faces with their work, particularly if you're asking for money. And I'm not sure that it matters to me so much that that if you're advocating for a black issue that you have to be black. I don't really believe that. But what I do know is that if you're profiting off of these issues, then you should show how that money is actually helping those issues. Right. One thing that does bother me is the number of non-black people who are making millions of dollars off of black pain and suffering, getting hundreds of millions of clicks off of talking about our issues. And while thank you for highlighting our issues, the fact of the matter is game recognized game. We know what's going on. You're generating massive amounts of dollars and clicks on behalf of issues that are hurting black communities. And yeah, I do think you owe something to the black community when you're profiting off of our pain. At a minimum, you owe to show us how those dollars that you are raising are actually helping the communities that you're profiting off of. You don't have to be black to talk about black issues, but for sure damn hell, if you're profiting off of black issues, you better be doing something for the black community. And we see time and time again, people understand. Listen, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to move to the next story. I've seen time and again when non-black people, let me start this way. When black people talk about race, we're regularly called race baiters. We're regularly called race pimps. We're regularly derided. And if we happen to go one step further and have the nerve to talk about any race issues that can't be laid at the feet of conservatives only, and what I mean by that is if we talk about racial problems in progressive circles, then we are abandoned. We're alienated. We're attacked, right? But you can have white people or non-black people talk about race issues all day long and make millions of dollars off of it. Hundreds of thousands of dollars that are just going into their pockets because, oh, look, here's a white person who's talking about a race issue. And this is exactly what happened. I mean, this page was literally twice as big as the authentic Black Lives Matter page. They made all of this money off of black pain. And it probably all went into that guy's pocket, into his personal retirement.
On the advice of my attorney, I assert my Fifth Amendment rights.
Do you fear prosecution for lies that you've told in the past under oath?
On the advice of my attorney, I assert my Fifth Amendment rights.
Is the reason you're invoking the Fifth Amendment in response to my question because answering the question will incriminate you?
On the advice of my attorney, I assert my Fifth Amendment rights.
That was the voice of retired Chicago police officer Reynaldo-Guevara as he pled the Fifth over and over and over again. He has been implicated in the framing of 51 people for murder. And the most comprehensive reporting that I found on this actually came from BuzzFeed News reporter Melissa Seguara. I have a link to her article from 2017 in the description. The most updated information on this is just recently, a few weeks ago, murder charges were thrown out in another case linked to the same officer, the same detective. So there have been over 51 cases where he's been accused of framing innocent people. Of those 51, 2 of them have died in jail. Some of them have been released and exonerated. There's still some who are in prison. Some even got the death penalty, but thankfully, because of the incoming governor's disgust with the number of exonerations, even after the death penalty had been carried out, in some cases, he suspended sentences or reduced sentences from death to life. But this one officer is now implicated in 51 cover-ups. And the reporting by Melissa Seguara is so important because she details the challenges that the families had to go through, because despite all of the information that was at the hands of in the hands of the prosecuting attorney, the district attorney, in the hands of judges, in the hands of city officials, state officials, and even federal officials, everyone turned a blind eye to these cases. And it was a group of aunts and cousins who got together and they started to see patterns, and they literally had to do the investigative work themselves and poke holes in the story of this man. And they found themselves in a group, in a support group for convicted killers, found themselves all having some commonalities across their stories and all tracking back to Reynaldo-Guevara. These are average, ordinary, working class aunts, cousins sitting around a dinner table having to map out with red string and sticky tape and notepads all the inconsistencies and having to do the investigative work that the prosecuting attorney should have done. But because there is this camaraderie, there's this loyalty, there's this blue shield that protects and that keeps them covering each other, particularly in Chicago. Because of that, no one who was in an official position to actually prevent this from happening, did a single thing to stop it from happening, and over 51 people over a 20-year period. Now, again, this investigation has been going on for some time, investigation into how many people are actually innocent. And so the clip that you heard at the beginning was actually from 2013. The piece that I referenced from Melissa, from Melissa Seguara is actually from 2017. Most recently, and this story is actually rather tragic. Again, reporting from Melissa Seguara, for BuzzFeed, a man who says a Chicago detective framed him, speaking of Reynaldo, was just set free. Ricardo Rodriguez's case was investigated by Detective Reynaldo-Guevara, reading directly from BuzzFeed. He is the 8th Guevara defendant exonerated since April of 2017. This case is actually tragic because now the man who has been set free is actually poised to be deported. According to the article, quote, "Yet Rodriguez won't have the happy homecoming from prison. He was born in Mexico and had permanent resident status here in the United States. After he was convicted in 1996, an order for his deportation was issued. Thompson has said Rodriguez will fight his removal from the U.S., his home since childhood." I mean, the gripping and terrifying irony of that in and of itself is disgusting. One last important detail on this story. I do plan on reporting on this or discussing this with you quite a bit more. I reached out to Melissa Seguara because she's one of the lead reporters unpacking this story, particularly for BuzzFeed. But I've yet to be able to find a single instance or a single article that indicates that this former police officer who framed 51 people has been indicted, tried, convicted, or sentenced. The only thing I can find is that the Chicago attorneys, district attorneys, have offered him immunity and are looking to compel him to testify to help shore up one of their investigations, because they're like, well, this particular case, I think it's a good case and we need to get him in here to testify to help us shore up this conviction. And so they've offered him immunity. But I've yet to find, and maybe it happened and I just can't find it, but when I search pretty thoroughly. And so I'm at my wit's end, and I've reached out to Melissa to see if she has any information, because she's clearly the one who is steeped in this story from top to bottom. So she would have that information. But I want to discuss this story with you more. I just find it fascinating how many people can be complicit for such a long time in the wrongful convictions. Notice I didn't say I was surprised. I am fascinated, because this is so indicative of the problems that we talk about in our criminal justice system. They don't happen in isolation. The framing of 51 people over decades doesn't happen in isolation. Somebody was suspicious at the time of all these collars, at all of these cases that he was busting wide open. Somebody was suspicious then and said nothing. And if they said something, their higher up said nothing. And so how many lives were destroyed by one police officer's actions and the inaction of everyone surrounding him? So when we talk about these issues, you can see it makes absolutely no sense for people to say, yeah, it was one cop. Look at all of the damage that one police officer can do when everyone around them are just turning a blind eye. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. That's all the time I have for you today. So many more stories coming up. Be sure to go to patreon.com/the BPD show. We're still in this fundraiser. I'm not going to press you about it that much because I'm not really that good of a fundraiser, clearly. But you've been thinking about it. Why not go ahead and do it? support the Benjamin Dixon Show. Help us hit our goal so that we can continue to improve and bring you things. We're doing it by ourselves. We're doing it independently, and we're doing it our way. I should drop some Frank Sinatra right there, my way, right? That's the way we're doing it. All right, have a great day. See you tomorrow, everyone. Take care.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.